Hello everyone, welcome to the English practical course. The topic under analysis is courts and trials. How does the American judicial system work? As you see on the slide, there are three branches of the government: legislative, executive, and judicial. We are to analyze the third branch, judicial one, that interprets laws. Article 3 of the Constitution, which establishes the judicial branch, leaves Congress significant discretion to determine the shape and structure of the federal judiciary. Even the number of Supreme Court justices is left to Congress. The Constitution also grants Congress the power to establish court inferior to the Supreme Court, and to that end, Congress has established the United States District Courts, which try most federal cases, and 13 United States Courts of Appeals, which review appellate district court cases. Federal judges can only be removed through impeachment by the House of Representatives and conviction in the Senate. Judges and justices serve no fixed term. They serve until their death, retirement, or conviction by the Senate. Generally, Congress determines the jurisdiction of the federal courts. In some cases, however, such as in the example of a dispute between two or more states, the Constitution grants the Supreme Court original jurisdiction and authority that cannot be stripped by Congress. The courts only try actual cases and controversies. A party must show that it has been harmed in order to bring suit in court. This means that the courts do not issue advisory opinions. Federal courts enjoy the sole power to interpret the law, determine the constitutionality of the law, and apply it to individual cases. The courts, like Congress, can compel the production of evidence and testimony through the use of a subpoena. The inferior courts are constrained by the decisions of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of the United States is the highest court in the land and the only part of the federal judiciary specifically required by the Constitution. The court's caseload is almost entirely appellate in nature, and the court's decision cannot be appealed to any authority, as it is the final judicial arbiter in the United States on matters of federal law. However, the court may consider appeals from the highest state courts or from federal appellate courts. The court also has original jurisdiction over limited types of cases, including those involving ambassadors and other diplomats, and in cases between states. Although the Supreme Court may hear an appeal on any question of law provided it has jurisdiction, it usually doesn't hold trials. Instead, the court's task is to interpret the meaning of a law, to decide whether a law is relevant to a particular set of facts, or to rule on how a law should be applied. Lower courts are obligated to follow the precedent set by the Supreme Court when rendering decision. Okay, so there is a scheme. You could see, so higher court, written, appellate courts, trial courts, and federal courts, and the board outside the judicial branch. Okay. Here it would be wise to mention that Article 3 of the Constitution of the United States guarantees that every person accused of wrongdoing has the right to a fair trial before a competent judge and a jury of one's peers. The 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments to the Constitution provide additional protections for those accused of a crime. These include a guarantee that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, protection against being tried for the same crime twice. So it's called double jeopardy. Next, the right to a speedy trial by an impartial jury. The right to cross-examine witnesses and to call witnesses to support their case. The right to legal representation. the right to avoid self-incrimination, protection from excessive bail, excessive fines, and cruel and unusual punishments. Criminal proceedings can be conducted under either state or federal law depending on the nature and extent of the crime. The defendant is given time to review all the evidence in the case and to build a legal argument. Then the case is brought to trial and decided by a jury. If the defendant is determined to be not guilty of the crime, the charges are dismissed. Or otherwise, the judge determines the sentence, which can include prison time, a fine, or even execution. Okay, unfortunately, we are limited in time, and if there are still some questions that were not highlighted by me, please contact me or write in the chat, and we will discuss them together. Thank you for your attention. Bye-bye. See you.